Welcome to Galactic Historian. This is a series where I break down the lore of sci-fi universes. The first in-game Invictus celebration is upon us, and as a result, I wanted to help give some context as to what this event is for those interested in the lore behind this free-fly event. I realize that many of you might be new to this game entirely and have no context to the events I'm about to describe, so I'll leave a link in the top right to my introductory series on the Star Citizen lore. Be sure to watch those videos first before attempting to watch this. Before we dive into the lore, let's first define what the word Invictus even means. To put it simply, it's Latin for unconquered. It has a history to it. The term Roma Invicta, or unconquered Rome, appears on the back of ancient Roman coins up until the 5th century. It is also the title of a famous 1888 poem by William Ernst Henley, as a self-affirming tale of his own personal struggles with his health. Throughout history, the term has been used to define the indomitable courage and strength of groups or individuals, often used as a synonym for human perseverance. This definition carries over into the Star Citizen universe. The history of the Invictus launch week starts in 2542, 1 year into the First Tavaran War. With it being the first interstellar conflict humanity had ever fought, there was a need for new recruits. Since Sol still remained at the heart of the United Planets of Earth, the official training location for these new recruits was the recently created Invictus base on Mars, named as a statement that humanity would not be conquered so easily. From all over the Empire, these new recruits would gather into transports destined for this base. These were eventually called Invictus launches, and because of the complexity of this task, they scheduled it to occur on regular days, the first being October 12th. As a result, this quickly became a tradition. The beginning of the year for recruitment in the Navy was October 12th and called Invictus Launch Week. This became a celebration of service throughout the UPE and eventually the UEE. The Invictus base would remain in operation until 2579, when it officially closed. 2 years later, however, in 2581, Ivar Messer made Invictus Launch Week an empire-wide event, thus making the informal yearly event a formally recognized celebration. Each system would hold an official event to send off the first young men and women of the year who were reporting for duty. They would then be loaded onto transports and flown to the, at the time current, training base in the Magnus system on the planet of Borea. When these facilities moved to MacArthur in the Killian system in 2632, so did the Invictus launches. Since the Messers emphasized nationalism and patriotism above all else, this gesture would allow for a more formal celebration of the UEE military by the public, showing enlistment as a noble thing to be praised, turning this event into a helpful propaganda tool for the Messers. It was because of this that Terra abstained from participating in the Invictus celebrations in 2637. They cited their reasons for this being the current imperator, Livia Messer, Messer III, was increasingly using this week to push her pro-military and xenophobic agenda. We know that Terra Governor Asan Kiernan spoke at an event, likely a separate event held in protest of the launch week celebrations, and was an outspoken opponent of the pro-military agenda of the Messers and its unconditional support for the military-industrial complex. Over time, the cost of transporting thousands, if not millions, of new recruits to the Killian system became too much, and by 2681, the UEE officially ended the practice of providing transport, requiring these recruits to self-report to Killian. This was one of the first signs of the immense cost of keeping the massive Messer-era military running. It was becoming expensive to field troops to both maintain the defense of the Empire and to keep the increasingly dissatisfied public in line. In a desperate attempt to prevent the rising dissident movement in the Empire, Gaylor Messer, Messer IX, made attendance at these events mandatory. Unknown to him, this allowed for more dissent, as rebels used these events as a way to meet with one another safely to discuss strategy under the guise of patriotism. This rising frustration and resistance to Messer rule culminated in the overthrow of Linton Messer, Messer XI, on May 3, 2792. This is known as Emancipation Day today, celebrated in 2950 on May 22nd. This change would also affect the Invictus launch week. The newly installed High Command of the UEE set about ridding the military of Messer loyalists, but by 2794 it became clear that this had gutted the military structure. Not wanting to revisit the patriotic pro-military era of the Messer rule, but seeing the value in Invictus as a recruitment tool, the High Command changed the date to fall between Emancipation Day and Armistice Day, the latter presumably the date of the end of the First Tevaran War. However, winning back the trust of the people was a slow process. So, as an attempt to make the week's celebration more civilian-friendly, by 2803, the famous 999th Test Squadron, not that one, yes, that one, began to perform at some systems ceremonies. This further was marked in 2862 when Imperator Gaetare Deamana attended the Invictus ceremony on Earth, presumably the first Imperator to do so since the Meser era, thus showing the political shift of public opinion back to supporting the celebrations. This was further supported by the famous one-day speech by Imperator Gordon Salehi in 2875 aboard the Archangel Station, the headquarters of the Synthworld Project. The ambitious project is an attempt to create an artificial planet to reduce the need to find planets suitable for habitation. It was there that Imperator Salehi outlined his goal for Project Archangel, including the desire to one day hold Invictus celebrations on the future Synthworld. Invictus continues to be an important part of the culture of the UEE, its history bouncing between a symbol of strength of humanity to the symbol of oppression to a celebration of service. No one knows the future holds for the Invictus launch week, but one thing is for sure, it will always reflect the hopes and the fears of the people of the UEE. I want to thank you for watching, and I want to thank my Patreons on screen now for helping me make this content. If you enjoy this, consider becoming a Patreon yourself. Just $5 a month can get you early access to these videos, and even a long-requested podcast version of these videos for easier listening while driving or while at work. Are you excited for the Invictus launch week? Interested in learning more about bits of lore that have made it into the game? Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, remember, Ex Historia ad Astra.